In this video, the basics of masking in Final Cut Pro 10. Hello world, my name is Matt Spa and I'm a photographer, videographer, and for the past 7 months or so, out of work musician in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not able to get together with my pals and play, and that's a big bummer, and I'm not able to go on stage and get paid, and that's an even bigger bummer, but I try to play a little bit every day just to keep my chops intact. And sometimes I'll record that, and sometimes they're cool, and sometimes they're not cool, and sometimes they're just funny. And I recorded a thing the other day, and it was funny, or I thought it was funny. So I sent it to a bass player friend of mine, and he was like, you know, that is actually funny. So I sent it to a video friend of mine, and he thought it was funny, and I thought I should make a video to go along with this piece of music. But I couldn't invite all my pals over to play all the parts, so I had to do it myself. But watching me play all the individual parts would not be very exciting, so I used a technique called masking to take all 4 of me and put it all together into one video. Masking allows you to mask out certain sections of a piece of video so that the video that's underneath it on your timeline comes through, and this will make a whole lot more sense in a minute. In this video, I'm going to go over 2 techniques. We're going to use a shape mask, and then we're also going to use a draw mask, which allows you to actually draw around something. You can make changes to it frame by frame in order to create the look that you want. So let's take a look at my finished masterpiece, and then I'll talk about the steps that I went through to get it done. I hope that, like my pals, you found that funny, at least on some level. Before we get into editing on the computer, I want to mention 3 things that you can do when you're collecting your footage that will make that edit go a lot smoother. Number 1, block out all sources of artificial light. The sun moves, clouds roll over, leaves rustle in the wind, and if you're using natural light to light your scene, it's going to change over time, and that's going to be a problem when you get down to doing your edit because the shadows are going to be in the wrong place. Just rely on artificial light and you'll be a lot better off. Number 2, turn off autofocus in your lens. I shot that on a manual cinema lens, so I didn't have to worry about autofocus. I think it was at about f5.6 or something like that, but basically I just split the difference between the closest me and the furthest me from the camera and let the focus fall right there. If you use autofocus, your camera is going to be hunting while you move around. It's going to make it really difficult to put things together. The last thing to keep in mind is try and not touch your camera while you're recording the different segments. In my case, I hit record 1 time, I recorded all 4 segments, and then I hit record again. So everything was in one clip. You could use a remote or something like that to turn the record function on and off, but basically you just don't want to touch your camera. No matter how good your tripod is, no matter how hard everything is wrenched down, you run the risk of moving and thus would change your framing, make things harder to edit on the back end. So if you do all that, you're going to get awesome footage, and now we can jump over to the computer and I'll show you how I put it all together. Here we are in Final Cut Pro, and the first thing I had to do was drop in my clip. Next, I added my file that I'd got exported from Logic here that has the final music on it. Every time I played through the audio for a different clip, I actually played the audio in the room. So I have something I can sync everything up to. There are automated ways to do this as well, but for me it was just as easy to just line everything up. The base layer that we have, and actually I'm going to call this the background layer so it's not to be confused with the bass player later on. So here's the background layer. It is our sweetheart of the rodeo, beatnik bongo boy, and I don't have to do anything to this layer. This is going to be the background on which I'm going to lay all of my other footage. Moving up in the timeline, we now have the bass player. And when I activate that by pushing V on the keyboard, you see that the bongo boy disappears. It's because this is not masked. So what we're going to do is create a mask that only shows the bass player and allows the rest of this to come through. Let's turn off the background layer, go to the effects palette, type in mask, and grab the shape mask. We're going to take the shape mask, put it on top of this clip, and now you can see what sections are actually showing up in the clip. So wherever we move this hole, it's going to show that content. We have some green nodes on the side that adjust size, and we have a white one on the top that will adjust the curvature. You can also do all of that in the window over here. But what I want to do is just drag this mask right on top of the bass player, and I want to get it as close to this knee as possible because there is some overlap between this knee and the elbow of the percussionist. We can control the feathering of the clip. If I take this down to almost 0, you'll see we have a very hard edge. If we take it this way, we get our feathering to the inside. If we push it this way, we get our feathering to the outside. I do want a little bit of feather there, but not that much. The last things on here are the transformation capabilities of this window. We can actually move this mask over the course of the clip by adding keyframes. We're going to do that when we get to the draw mask, but just so you know, you have that capability here. You can also scale with this window and do some rotation. Lastly, we have control points. We can convert this shape to points, which would actually give us a separate node at each corner that we could move independently. If you notice right now, everything kind of moves together. So that's got our bass player in place. Let's reactivate the background layer by pushing V. And you can see we have a very nice clean line between the two. There's a little bit of shadow showing up right here that I'm not wild about, but it's a natural look. Okay, we're good with that one. Next, we need to add the rhythm guitar player, and I've already put the mask in there. You can see that it goes way outside of the area that's being shown, which not really necessary, but. And lastly, we have to add the lead guitar player. As is often the case, lead guitar players can be problematic, and this one is no exception. Right here, he's totally fine. If we were to just put a mask on him, let's just do it. Let's put a shape mask on there. Pull it in from the sides. Look at that. Looks great. But the problem is, lead guitar player can't stand still. He's got to jump around, do all this foolishness. At some point, he's going to go behind the rhythm guitar player. Let me see if I can find it. There it is, right there. So our straight line shape mask is not going to work. And actually, he's going behind the headstock of this rhythm guitar. So let's turn that shape mask back on. So you can see that the shape mask is not going to do it even if we convert it to points. What we need is a custom mask that we can make. Let's get rid of this shape mask altogether. What we need is a custom mask that we can use to outline the headstock of the one guitar and allow it to show on top of this guitar. But we have another problem. I wanted this lead guitar player, because he doesn't start at the beginning, to actually walk into the frame. So if we come all the way back out here, we've got this guitar player, and he is obviously going to overlap the rhythm player, maybe the bass player a little bit, and even the bongo boy. So what we need to do is take the draw mask, add it to our clip. And if we go over here, you can see now we have this pen tool, and we can click to add control points. So what I'm going to do is just go around the lead guitar player and add this mask. I'm going to come down to the bottom, and do the same thing up this side. This process can be a little bit tedious, but it's extremely effective. So what we have now is the mask. But we have a problem. If we start moving through this frame by frame, the mask is not moving with the guitar player. So if we go back out here, we can take this, using control points, we can add a keyframe. So now all of those items are keyframed on frame number 1. If I press K and then L, I can advance my clip one frame at a time. I can add another keyframe and then adjust these points so that they stay right along the edge. Now it's not important that I do the entire figure. I only need to do the areas where he is overlapping other players in the scene. So up here, none of this up here matters. Only this part down here, and it doesn't even need to be exact. It just needs to get the sections that are obscuring the footage underneath. With this, we have complete control over feathering, we have control over location, etc. So again, hold down K, push L, advance one frame, add a keyframe, and go back in and just, you can, well, there you go, you can move the whole mask. Or you can move it frame by frame. If you want to grab a number of control points, you can do that by just drawing around them. And here again, we can just move all of this in, get the majority of them in place, and then drag up. Excellent. And I have one that is completed. I will turn off the one that we just added and turn back on the one that I was initially using. And if I go through this frame by frame, you can see the movements that I have made to my relatively simple mask until that guitar player is no longer obscuring anything that's underneath. So it just moves forward, and it's that simple. Add a keyframe for each frame of your video and move the control points where they need to be. And there you have it, simple masking techniques in Final Cut Pro that you can use not only to correct things that might be wrong with your footage, but also in creative applications. If this was helpful to you and you like this kind of content, please subscribe, give me a comment, ring my bell, hit the thumbs up button. Most importantly, tell 2 friends, and I'll see both of you in the next one.